Alright guys, this is an interesting interview or panel with Meghan Markle. It's a lot of the same stuff, but there are some unique aspects to it. It gets a little boring at the end, but hopefully we can make it interesting by seeing what she's talking about.
Just a quick one as we're among friends. I mean, how's that bump treating you?
Very well. It's funny, I've actually been joking in the past few weeks. I'd seen this documentary on Netflix about feminism, and one of the things they said during pregnancy was, I feel the embryonic kicking of feminism. I love that. So boy or girl, whatever it is, we hope that that's the case. But
That's weird, first of all.
The next generation of feminism.
Yeah.
So for me, that's just like a weird, awkward joke, like embryonic kicking. It just sounds weird, kind of like creepy as a joke to me. And I'm wondering if that's like virtue signaling. Like we've just heard that she, before her child was born, was trademarking and copywriting her name. So is this the same thing? The child's not even born, and she's like, this makes me even more of a feminist. My child is a feminist in the embryo.
Of the way there. Guaranteed, you heard it here first.
if things are wrong, and there is a lack of justice, and there's an inequality, then someone needs to say something. And why not me? So I think
That's hilarious. I was just gonna say, and that someone is her most of the time. And I think it's more about the saying something than about the inequality for her.
no, if I look at that from that young age and then sort of follow what I did in the years after that, it was always about learning more, not just from where I was, but where else in the world similar things were happening.
So again, notice she's always taking this frame, but that's a frame that other people give you. And that frame and perspective is like, I'm the wise one. It's like if you have like Warren Buffett or maybe Queen Elizabeth or someone who's really done a lot, and they're like humbly talking about what they've learned as if people are fascinated by that. Like she puts herself in that perspective and speaks from it, but that's not really her. Like I've never seen her having any bit of being humble.
The same thing, so to speak. And once I became old enough to travel specifically to developing countries and see what was happening abroad, I think for me what really resonated was...
To me also, I think when she says specifically developing countries, I don't know, just knowing her, if it were someone else, maybe not, that to me feels like, again, like a brag. You know, like she just slips in things there. Like when I travel, specifically to developing countries, it seems to me she's like bragging about how much she's done. She's been so many places. And also, some of you have mentioned, it's a good point, like probably she could have a much larger impact if she actually cared. I'm not saying other countries you don't want to work in, but where she is. But that's not as much as of a photo opportunity, going to all these different places, taking pictures with people, rather than actually doing things there, or even more of an impact at home.
The lack of education for girls and how that has a ripple effect on so many things. And I think, you know, it seems like a broad stroke, and many people will say, okay, fine, yes, you want girls to have an education, you just want to have smart girls.
This part actually is not too bad. She does get a little specific, but it's very boring. She's just a boring speaker, and I think maybe she's not that interested in what she's talking about. Let's move a little bit on.
It means to be masculine, what it means to be feminine. You know, I've said for a long time, you can be feminine and a feminist. You can be masculine, and I think
and we missed a little bit of it, but she'll sing like, oh, men should be feminists, blah, 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 but she doesn't define what that is. And that's a really funny thing. It's like, I'm a feminist. Oh, you're so great. Let's cheer. But it has nothing to do with the actions that they're actually taking. Like, do you treat people well? What do you actually do? Versus just saying like, you're a this.
Of masculinity, you understand that your strength includes knowing your vulnerabilities, and your sense of self and security, your confidence, comes...
By the way, she's talking about security and vulnerability and whatever. That's a little bit of a pet peeve of mine, because I feel like that's been a big cultural thing. It's like any masculine culture people don't like. I mean, there are some negative ones, like, oh, that's insecure. If you're insecure, you'd cry. If you were secure, you'd cry and be super vulnerable. Basically be like Harry, which that's incredibly insecure. But it's funny, they'll say like these cultures where it's like, people are living in the mountains doing these incredibly difficult things all the time. Like, oh, you know, because they have a culture of strength, both for men and women, but as a masculine culture, they're like, oh, they're insecure because they don't cry. It's just ridiculous.
Knowing that a woman by your side, not behind you, is actually something that you shouldn't be threatened about, but as opposed to that,
or shoving her way in front of you at all times in every second. By your side means in front of you, in Meghan's case.
I feel really empowered in having that additional support, that this is really about us working together. That's what gender equality means for me, and having men part of that conversation to say, there's nothing threatening about a woman coming up to the same level. It's our...
See, no, here's an interesting thing here as well. This doesn't sound so bad, but she's framing it as if you disagree with her, it's about being threatened. So like I might say, when Meghan Markle is going to these countries and just taking photos and traveling and using up fuel when she's Mrs. Environment, that it's not actually accomplishing much, but then she could say, oh, you're threatened by me. You know, so if you don't agree, you're threatened. And we see that in commenters and haters here, where there's no, like, someone could disagree and have a good intentions. It's if you disagree, you're bad and you're evil. And that's a huge problem with all these buzzword cult people.